Is Mindy present? Hi, Mindy. How are you? Let's see. Did I see your name somewhere? I did.
No.
Did not. So,
No.
would you want to come up front this evening?
I think you should. I think you should.
What's that? Can you bring a chair up here? Can you
We
bring?
didn't show you the rest, but we're gonna do a roast.
Hey, come here. There's a chair right here. I feel like this is a chair. This is a time for you to be up front. Can we? Go time.
By the 6th.
All right.
All right, we're starting.
All right. It is 6 o'clock, and we're ready for our April board meeting. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Let's do a pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now a moment of silence, please. Amen. All right, Mr. Martin.
All right, welcome to the April board meeting. Up first, we have our consent agenda, financial report, and board minutes. Are there any questions over that? Okay, with that, I'd like to make the recommendation that the consent agenda, financial report, and board minutes of the regular board meeting held on March 10, 2025 be approved as submitted.
All right, we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
Motion by Eric.
I'll second.
Second by Mindy. All in favor? None opposed.
All right, next we have a recognition. We have our cheer team here. I believe Ms. Hurst is this 2 times in a row for state. So we had back-to-back this year. They won some others in the past. They went to nationals this year in Dallas. We are extremely proud of them. It's been a while. I believe they had their state cheer competition right before Thanksgiving or Christmas. I lose track every year. But they're also very busy with basketball season and everything else. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Hurst.
Well, this is most of the competition team from this past year. And we do compete, it's right before Christmas. And yes, we were and so we won back-to-back this year. We won in 21 as well. And like Mr. Mark said, we won nationals last year. We placed 5th this year. And we were going to get recognized at an earlier board meeting this year, but we were traveling to support our girls basketball team in the state tournament. So it took a little bit of time to get here. I am missing a few because in the spring and the summer, they do try to make up those work hours whenever that we're not super busy and things like that. But the kids have worked really, really hard. I lost 8 seniors this year. But we just had tryouts, and it looks like we are going to go strong into the new year, competitive world and sideline world again. And so we had a great year wrapping it up with these lovely athletes, and we're looking forward to another great competitive year for the 25-26 school year.
Yeah, can they tell their grade too?
Okay. This is Ava Biffany, she's a senior. Miley Humphrey, she's a senior. Kaylee Hightower, she's a senior. Haley Snar, junior. Maya Lundy, junior. Savannah Young, junior. Connor Walker, junior. Grayson Hurst, sophomore. Riley Randall, sophomore. Bridget Clark, sophomore. Kyrie McIntyre, sophomore. Jennifer Burfus-Branham, sophomore. Emily Burfus-Branham, junior. Bristol Hunt, sophomore. Emily Wynn, freshman. And Patience Evans, freshman.
And will you take a picture, because Annette's not going to be here, just to make sure we're covered on all bases.
Just curious, what's your best experience, especially for the seniors, like 3 or 4 years in, what's your best experience being part of the cheer program?
I said
Just take a picture.
Just putting in most of the years on the routine for 2.5 minutes to like really grow with your fellow peers, and you can not only see them as your peers, but as some of your closest friends and family.
Very good.
I can back that stay here.
Sure you can.
We all get together, it's like, you know, it's a great ride.
It's your representative. Courtney, way to know those names, you did great.
Yeah, every team member first and last in here.
That's true.
All right, next, we have a presentation, our enrollment analysis, back to follow y'all through enrollment analysis for our district. RSP Associates is here to present. We have Ms. Gina Wallace here to present for us, so we'll go ahead and turn it over to her.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jenna Wallace, RSP. I'm going to walk through the enrollment analysis we put together for you guys. It's a pretty hefty document, so I'm going to kind of keep this more high level, not speak to every slide, but more so the key takeaway variables that led to our enrollment projections. So a little bit about RSP. We are based out of Kansas City, but we work with school districts all over the Midwest. Even more, working more so in Arkansas recently. So we were founded 20 years ago to kind of bridge the gap between city planning and school district planning. The report here has a lot of different main takeaways and themes that go into the indications of growth or limitations of growth. So know that this is a sophisticated forecast model. We're collecting all the data and producing that most likely forecast. The report's broken out into these four main parts. I'll spend most of the time talking on part one and part two, and then how those two parts of what's happening with enrollment, what's happening with housing, lead to our 10-year enrollment forecast. So the executive summary here goes through kind of the main takeaways from the report. We do have the district growing over the next 10 years by around 550 students. And so a lot of that growth is at the junior high and high school level, those grade levels, as they bring in larger grades into that grade band. We're seeing greatest growth there. And you'll see that's correlated with the capacity challenges, where the junior high and the high school are expected to increase over their building capacity within this time period. And one of those main drivers is going to be our development activity. So going into our part one, the whole report is very detailed on geography. So our model is really built on what are the different variables that are happening at the household level that are creating a different relationship with students. And so we get very granular with our geography of the district. You'll see lots of maps in the report. This first visual is just looking at our district boundary and our city limits. And so we're kind of right setting where we are at on a geographic perspective. And the next thing that we do when we start looking at the model is, instead of just thinking of it as one district boundary, we break it down into bite-sized blocks called planning areas. And so a planning area is a unique geography that we create, and you can think of it as one neighborhood, one apartment complex, a new growth area, and it's a small building block that is analyzed for what's happening with students, what's happening with housing. Is it $500,000 houses? Is it more affordable units? All of those different variables need to have a different relationship with students in future years. And so this visual is just showing you how the green lines are going to be one planning area, while the yellow lines are a census block. So we are more detailed than the census gets with our population analysis, why we really dive in deep to what's happening with your household in the community. And then each of the variables are analyzed at that granular level and then fed into the forecast model. So if this means something to you, that's great. If not, it just means it's statistics. It's bringing all that in together, pushing out that most likely forecast, and we're known for at that 98% accuracy, more likely that 99 to 99.5% accuracy. And that really leads into what are the different variables that we're feeding the model. And so some variables may be more limitations to growth, and then some are more indicators of growth. And so we're collecting all of that, knowing what's happening in each household and producing that most likely forecast. Okay, so to get into one of our key key variables here, we're looking at the relationship between live birth data to kindergarten students 5 years later. This gives us a market share of what we can forecast for future kindergarten students. And so in this case, we are seeing an increasing Benton County live birth rate. And your district sees around a 4 to 5% market share of those county live births. So as we see increasing live birth rate, we're going to have a more sustainable kindergarten enrollment. And then the bottom graphic is also looking at the relationship between live births and that total population under 5 years of age. You can see how both of these variables have been increasing. There was a couple dips. You can see in 2019, 2020, live birth rate dropped a little bit. That's very typical. We saw COVID really kind of decrease a lot of live births, and frankly, most of our districts that we work with have a decreasing live birth. So the fact that you guys have an increasing really speaks to just the population growth that the entire county is seeing. Next, we look at our past enrollment by grade, so what's been happening these past 10 years, and what are the different grade trends that are happening. So in this case, we have seen our greatest enrollment yet. That's no surprise, we've been growing for the past 10 years, and we have many classes that are the largest in history. A good rule of thumb when thinking about enrollment growth is comparing your kindergarten class to your 12th grade class, and can your incoming kindergarten fully replace that exiting 12th grade class? And so for the past years where you had greater growth, you had a larger kindergarten class than that exiting 12th grade. And this year it's a little different where you do have a smaller kindergarten class. And so we would normally say that this is a limitation. But the caveat to that and what offsets that variable is your considerable cohort growth. And so cohort growth is that pickup of students year to year between, say, 4th to 5th grade or 7th to 8th grade. And the cohort growth that you guys are seeing is really great. And that's what's creating larger secondary grades than our elementary grades. And so this bubble that's currently in our intermediate and middle school, as they move into our junior high and high school, they're replacing those grades. And you can see that demonstrated on these visuals, where that first one is comparing your kindergarten versus your 12th grade. How in the past, it tends to be kindergarten was greater. Forecast forward, we have 12th grade larger than our kindergarten class, and so we would want to see more of a stabilizing kindergarten, but the 12th grade growth of what they pick up year to year just offsets that variable. And then the bottom graphic is our grade size comparison. So you can see in the past how on that average class size, they were pretty close in each bubble. So in 1st grade versus 7th grade, they were pretty comparable. As we moved forward and picked up more grades each year, the junior high and the high school becomes the largest grades in the district. The next thing that we look at is our migration trends. And so we look at how many new students come into the district as the orange bars versus past students go private, parochial, out of district, out of state, anything like that, the green bars. So you guys typically see a net gain of about 100 to 120 students come from pure in and out migration. So very positive in and out migration there. We also look at our out-of-district trends. And so this is your open enrollment, your student choice between districts, as well as if any student has an address that was geocoded out of the district boundary. So with state Arkansas laws and that kind of being a hot topic, we wanted to look at what is the last 5 years of this variable. So you can see that increasing where we're at about 430 out-of-district students at the time of official count. So I will say that all of this goes back to that official October count or September count that you guys provide the state. So if you pick up more out-of-district students throughout the year, that won't be reflective of this. This is that snapshot. And you can see here at the top that Rogers School District, they have the greatest growth and they contribute the most out-of-district students per year. The next two visuals look at the geography of our students. And so in this case, we're focusing in on those neighborhoods, those planning areas, or the neighborhoods that are orange, or have been increasing in students versus green has been decreasing. It's a little kind of hard to tell on that map, but the printed map goes over a bit better which neighborhoods have more households moving in that have kids versus the green. It may be some existing homes that have some families that have either moved out, some aging in place, that have actually decreased the number of kiddos in those neighborhoods. And so then we also combine that with our total district heat density map. And so the hotspots indicating what neighborhoods have the proximity of students near each other. And then often changes, so looking kind of between these two maps, some areas that aren't hotspots yet are in orange, so they're increasing. So 5 years from now, 10 years from now, they may be a future hotspot versus some of those decreasing may be hotspots. So even though they're producing a lot of kids, it's less than what they were producing 5 years ago. And so that goes through part one. Most of these you can see are great indicators of growth. Really the only limitation is that kindergarten class coming in lower this year, but the offset of that is that continued cohort growth. And if we continue to see that cohort growth, like we have forecasted, we'll offset that. But if that decreases, if we start having less student change in between years, we can see more of that limitation with that kindergarten. Okay, so then going into development and growth, we look at the relationship between new housing units, population change, and enrollment. And so this visual looks at the past 10 years of the correlation between these three variables. And so you can really see that about 4 years ago, all three of these started going up higher at a greater rate. And so that green line population, we're looking at where it was like 100 to 200 new people per year. We're up to 300, 400 new people moving into the district. And then the blue line is new housing, so new certificates of occupancy these past 4 years, right? That same correlation is then taking off, which has producing that greater enrollment growth and just strengthening the assumption that if these two other variables continue at this rate, we'll continue to see that rate. And then the next thing we look at is the relationship between...
Can you go back?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe I just missed it, but why, if the red line is student enrollment, why is there not the same upward trend in the red line that we're seeing with the green and the blue?
It goes to that just because you have more people and more housing doesn't mean you're seeing the exact same relationship, so.
I wouldn't expect 1-to-1, but some of these new houses have new kids.
They do.
I would think that we'd see some uptick. It was interesting to me that there's so much flatness in the red line.
Sometimes we do see is kind of a delay too, and so when the census is pushing out the new houses and new people this year, it may take a year or two to see that enrollment bump at the same level.
Okay.
Yep. And so then our K-12 yield rate is looking at that relationship between new housing and kids. And so this is something that just because you're building 100 houses, it doesn't yield the same amount of kids 10 years ago as it does today. And so if you look at this orange bars, we're looking at single-family homes, where 10 years ago, there was 53 students per 100 single-family homes. Now, it's decreasing to 42 students per 100 single-family homes. And so even though we're building a lot of activity, and that is creating more students, it's not at that same rate of that new activity that was built 10 years ago. And this is probably the affordability of units, just people moving in maybe have less kids, as well as there's just different choices now with private homeschool or, your surrounding school districts. And so that's something that we're tracking that even though it's the same number of units, it doesn't have the same generation of students. And then the green bars, similar methodology, but for more multifamily. And so you guys don't have as much multifamily housing, but with some the new apartments coming in and some new multifamily planned, you're looking at an average of around 25 students per 100 multifamily homes. This graphic just goes in to look at all of the residential inventory that's in the district. So that top graphic is looking at each decade, how many new units have you built per that 10-year time period, where we can look at from 5 years into the current decade, we built over a third of our total housing units, so that just exploded, right? With the market and just the Northwest Arkansas corridor growth as well. So we're looking at over 5,000 single-family units and around 320 multifamily units, which that 320, most of that was built in the last 2 years. So that's on the uptick, and so we'll track that as well in future years if that the rate between multifamily and single-family increases as a way to provide more affordable housing. And so this visual looks at that student yield rate, where the neighborhoods that are in red have the greatest student yield rate. So they are producing the most students per 100 units. Green is the lowest. And so that may be somewhere those existing units have a lot of aging in place, don't have a lot of turnover, versus the red is probably units that were built in the last 3 years, and they're producing the most amount of kids that they'll ever see. The next couple of visuals just go into the housing market. And so this visual is looking at our average year built. So by those planning areas, which new units have been added to the district. Our median home value. So the price point of our units, those are going to be really two main variables that lead to if a household will be future student bearing. What's the age, so what's like the quality of the home, and then what's the price, can people afford it? And then our recent year built map. And so these different clusters are the past 5 years of unit production. So you can see those new subdivisions that have come online, where we're looking at over 400 units built in 2024. And I think we have like about 120 in 2025. And that's just, it's probably out of date by now that I put this report together. So just a lot of activity, right? And so we try to map out the future of our development activity with this map. And so the growth areas is looking at green would be those neighborhoods that are under current development. So they're either building or pulling building permits, or they've started their infrastructure, dirt work. And then the yellow and the purple are the future areas that the city identified for future residential development. I would say that we feel pretty good with the green, the current areas. I could see that 5 to 10 years. If you do another analysis in 2 years or even a year, that could really change. When talking with this city, they have so much going on right now, and they know where that purple area is where they expanded sewer and water infrastructure, so they feel good about that corridor. But there's just a lot of potential for growth throughout the district, and so really monitoring this year after year would be really good. And so all the areas on the map are put together on this table. So we're looking at what type of housing is proposed, where they're at with their process, so how many existing units have been completed versus how many potential they have to build out. And so we're looking at over 3,300 potential units over these next 10 years. And 1,750 of those are in current active stages. And so when I say that 5 and 10 year could be expanded, that's really likely as we see, future phases of those developments as well as developers follow each other. So when one starts to take off, another one takes off. So we'll map those out. And then the last thing in the model is we do more just a universal variable for economic development. So we just know and we're aware of the different regional things that are happening. So great community growth in the city, as well as with like Walmart Hub and different things that are happening in the region, further supporting that greater population and housing growth. So that goes through part 2. You can see here that all of these are great indicators of growth. Really the only limitation is that decreasing student yield rate, but that's very typical. When you build a lot of housing and it's a whole new generation of people, that variable is going to change. And so not so much as a limitation, it's just something that we would monitor year after year of how many students are coming from the new housing or building in the community.
And what's your factor on that? You said it was like per one
per 100.
No, per one house, one new unit, it's 0.42?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And so we show it by per 100 units, so it's 42.
42, right?
Yeah.
And so you've got 3,300 new units in the next 10 years.
Mhm.
And so if it was 0.42, we would forecast more than 545 new students in 10 years.
Right.
So 545 estimated 10-year change is a 0.16 estimate per new unit. So it's either 0.16 or it's 0.42.
So the yield rate, it's not as simple as like what's just happening within the developments though, because we'll also have,
I agree.
yeah.
And so your 120 migration, is that net per year?
Yes.
So net migration, we're 120 per year, and you're saying 3,300 and some new units the next 10 years, and we're yielding 545 total net in the next 10 years?
What was your last?
Your
one?
initial slide said in the next 10 years, we had 545
Mhm.
new
Over the
kids.
next 10 years.
That's 4 people, 4 cohorts per year on average, per grade for the next 10 years. I guess my point I'm making is, based on the data that I'm seeing from your report, 545 seems way low to me. Very low.
So I will say that when I get to, so the growth is really has been consolidated in that first year's 1 to 5. And so as we build out in the model, where we have, most of those units are in current and active. So that 3,300, well, 1,700 of them, we think are going to be done within the next 3 years. And so that's spiking up the first couple years of growth rate. But since we have more limited of that years 5 to 10, it's creating more of a stabilizing, still increasing growth rate in years kind of 5 to 10, post that as those units get done. Does that make sense?
A little bit. And don't get me wrong, I think the data is very thorough and good. It just, to me, it seems like when you add, I'm sure you've got a great model there, and when you add the net migration and 3,000, you're going to get, and you talk about increasing live birth rate in Benton County, you're going to get more than 545 in 10 years. You think about what on there, you said since 2020, we're 3 to 5% growth, 3 to 5%. So you take a 4% average. Sorry, I'm getting in the weeds, but 4% average, that's like 88 students at 2,200 population. And so, 88 students per year times 10 years, if we keep the 3 to 5% growth, that's 880. And I know that's just simple math,
Yeah.
right? That's not a formula. That's just, so I'm just saying that this seems like it might be underdone to me. Just my 2 cents on it. It's very thorough and great data.
I will say that when you get to be bigger, you can't just replicate that 4% growth.
Sure.
Every year.
It should.
So when you have a greater population, it's harder to sustain that. And so looking at past school districts that are in your place, it would be really hard to sustain that same amount of growth that you guys have experienced the last 3 to 5 years. And something with that, the yield rate analysis is that we get more detailed. So something that maybe I could provide for you all is a specific yield rate of students from the new housing the past 2 to 3 years compared to old existing housing, because that even might be a little bit lower, where just with building new houses, we're not seeing as many students. And so we're looking at those specific planning areas to also look at in the future when a housing development that's very similar in, say, size, number of bedrooms, price of home, what is that specific yield rate? And that's forecasted in the model, as well as the turnover of your existing units. And so there are some decreases in our existing neighborhoods that we're also pushing into this model too, because it's not just a straight upward growth. Does that help?
That's helpful, and I think for us, if we could kind of summarize it in a form of a range, so, because I don't want to get behind this, here's the worst case projection, and that's 800. The mean projection is 545, and that would maybe be more helpful. So, sorry, I'm going to stop asking questions, I'm just...
No, we have these questions too. We have these questions too, so.
If it's 0.42 children per new house, 3,300 new houses,
like that alone's like 1,300 new kids without anything else.
That's just us doing rough math without taking into account the housing cost and increased housing cost, and as that increases, people who are starting out can't afford, so we're just doing rough math.
Right.
I mean, we admit we're just doing rough
That's the
math.
yield rate for all units in the district, so not new housing. That's saying out of all your single-family inventory, it's 0.42, not,
Not multi, but don't you typically see more kids per household in multifamily?
no, it's single-family.
It's single,
Single family,
okay.
okay,
But
okay.
that's saying, that's counting all the units that were built in the 60s and in the 50s.
Oh,
It's
got
taking
it, okay.
all your residential inventory.
Got it.
The 13,000, the 3,000 is.
No. Sorry, the yield rate, so the 0.42,
Historical.
42 units.
It's taking
all
everything.
units.
Got it.
Yes.
So you're saying, so we should plan for, what's your number? In
542.
5 or 600 kids in 10 years?
Right, and you can see that here, the first 5 years is a much higher growth rate. And so you're looking at 400 students
Yeah.
Okay,
in the first 5 years. And so that's why I'm saying, when coming back, when we have more data for that 6 to 10,
sure.
we could see that go up higher. We have more information of what future housing will come in. But the first 5 years, really based on those 1,700 units that are digging dirt right now, we're seeing a 15% growth over the next 5 years.
Got it.
29, 30.
That's helpful.
Yeah. And so we break that down by our different grade levels. And so elementary is about a 60 student growth. You can see middle school is more of a stabilizer, just with the grades that are moving into the middle school. They're seeing some of the smaller elementary grades move in, and so that bubble is the smallest. And the greatest bubbles are junior high and high school, as they have more of the greater growth from cohort, as well as when the smaller classes that are currently, say, in 10th to 12th grade graduate, the classes coming in just fully replace and create the greatest growth model in those classes.
Got it.
Does that feel better, everybody here? And that's what I'm saying, so we could break down that yield rate by just focusing on the past 3 years of new units, and that would give a more accurate number of students per new housing unit versus kind of that historical trend that I showed in that first visual.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Did you have, I'm sorry, your face kind of looked like you maybe had a question? Okay.
Make any comment?
So the next thing, that's your kind of overview of all 10 years. And then the next thing that we break it down is by our buildings. I know that's pretty small back there. But this is looking at in each building, what is the projected enrollment growth, as well as how does that relate to our building capacity. So in this case, we have the shading indicates when you're over your building capacity. And so I know it's tough to see it there, but your primary, intermediate, and middle school have adequate capacity for that growth projected the next 10 years. The challenges starting at the junior high, really I would say next year. Our shading has year 2, but we're like 5 students from capacity. So I'm assuming next year, you guys are really going to start to feel that stress at the junior high level as it increases past that building capacity. High school, we're looking at year 5, where that enrollment is projected to surpass the high school level. So definitely some challenges within our secondary. And so then the last thing we have is our projections by grade. So just taking this apart, each grade level, if there's, kind of give you guys some tools to think about facility planning. So if there's some massaging between the grade levels, or thinking about where potential future additions could be, I'm trying to give you guys all the different tools to think about and make those decisions. All right, so that goes through the core part of the presentation. The rest of this is more just conclusion statements. And so that growth that we're seeing in that first year to 5 really comes from the units that were being fed that are in those current and active stages. The more growth we get, and as the city of Key Ridge kind of gets more of a handle on a future growth plan as well, we can see probably a greater trend of that 6 to 10 that would increase the growth projections in year 6 to 10. We need those units to either be proposed or recommended from the city of where they would think to add that to the model. But still, considerable growth. You guys are going to have some challenges with those facilities. in the first 5 years, and then post that as well. And so with that goes through most of my slides. These next steps here, that first one really just is, we would advise doing this, maybe in the next 2 years, 3 years, something to come back and check yourself when you're looking at enrollment projections, especially in high growth models. Development activity can keep going forever, it can plummet, things that were approved by the city could never build, and then something we never talked about could develop next year. Those kinds of things that we just want to monitor annually. So we do recommend that. And then for you all just to think about how to analyze these results with your capacity, and then communicate with your public that there's going to be some challenges with the current facility inventory with this projection maintains. And so with that, any other questions that you guys have? Anything I can go back over?
Just, can we get a copy of this?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir. I emailed you one. I'll email you.
Okay, good, thank
Yeah.
you. I didn't check the front.
Yeah, you have two. The second one has slide, I'm going to use slide 36 in it. It has the actual breakdown by grade levels and everything. The reason why we did this is November of 2025 is a big month for us. That's
Yes, sir.
when we have to, our facilities plan for partnership funding is due to the state. So over the next 6 months or so, it will be informing our community, working on getting input and making some decisions on what we're going to apply for as we go forward in the next specifically 5 years.
Yes, sir. All right, great, thank you, this is great information. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know, the enrollment analysis, the enrollment change, facility planning, I mean, budgeting, resource allocations, we're going to use this information on staffing decisions in the future so that we can see, patterns and everything. So we're really going to use this information to make decisions beyond just adding square footage or how we utilize facilities.
Yeah.
It's how we will manage the growth of Peter School District over the next 5 to 10 years. So it's good stuff. We're very appreciative of it, so.
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Was pre-K included in elementary, or was pre-K excluded in the analysis?
Did you say pre-K?
Yeah.
Okay, pre-K is its own line. That is tiny. It's up there at the top, but
Okay.
it is included in the enrollment piece. They have it going from, back in 2015, 16, 5 students. And in 23, I'm sorry, 34, 35, they're projecting us to have 76 students in our pre-K program. Now that's the numbers we have now, that's not including all the other daycares and all that stuff.
Fine, thank you.
And it is included in the primary school building whenever it's.
That's what I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't answer your question.
You're good.
What's our total enrollment right now?
We're right, counting pre-K, we're right at 2,700. Ish. It goes up and.
Right, around, we were just looking around about numbers.
It's kind of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? All right, up next, we have assessment update, and Ms. Tabor's going to give us an update on assessment dates.
Each month, we've had a principal share, or a campus team share about the work that they're doing, and so we were talking about what to discuss in April, and we thought, man, all the work that they've shared with you for the whole entire school year, we're getting ready to see what the results are. And so the state summative test window actually opened today. We start our testing in Pea Ridge next week on Monday. Our primary building will start testing. They'll run a 2-week window. They're taking a test in math and a test in reading. Each
each student. And so those will be a little smaller group, takes a little longer, so they've given themselves a 2-week window. Starting the next week, you have a calendar in your packet, the 28th. Our junior high and high school will start testing. They'll finish up, they'll take 4 days. So our students in grades 3 through 10 take a test in math, reading, writing, and science. And so they'll spread that over 4 days because these new tests, we just experienced them last year, they're untimed. And so we know how much time a student typically takes. We know how much time we have to provide standard, but we also don't want to stack multiple tests in a day, just in case we have students who want to take the extra time. So they are doing 1 test a day. You have there, in that first week, we really have a lot of testing going on. The 29th and the 30th are big days for us in 4 buildings. And then the next week, our middle school is going to join in. We'll actually start another summative test that week with advanced placement tests at the high school. We have 1 test we give at the junior high. We have around 270 tests we'll give for advanced placement throughout that 2-week window. And then we'll finish up after 4 weeks of testing with 1 week of school. So we have a lot of summative assessment going on through here. I know they're working really hard to make sure our students have a great testing experience. And our teachers are setting them up. We're running a lot of boot camps, test-taking skills, relieving anxiety skills before you go into a big test and all that. But we're hoping for some good results. We've seen good results along the way with our formative assessments, and this is where we kind of figure out where we fall in the state. So, any questions about that?
It's exciting. 'Tis the season, right?
It is.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Up next, we have action items, board transfers. We have none for school choice season. But up after that, we have door hardware purchase. Mr. Ramey has been working on our school safety grant, and this is part of our Grandmaster key system. We're doing that, and we have 2 bids to consider for door purchase hardware. Our recommendation is from Weshing to purchase our actual hardware from in the amount of $137,838.60. This will be fully covered by the school safety grant from the State Department. Are there any questions?
It's a keyed system or a badge card reader system?
We already have controlled access.
Okay.
What this, that's the card readers. What this is external and internal, changing out the door hardware so that we move to the Grandmaster key system. And on the classrooms, we are eliminating where you can use a key to unlock the door permanently from the outside, where every time the door closes, it's locked.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Any questions? Okay, with that, I'd like to make a recommendation to approve the purchase of door hardware from Wishy in the amount of $137,838.60.
Okay. No recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion by Ryan. Second.
I'll second.
All right, second by Jessica. All in favor? None opposed.
Okay, up next, we have installing the doorknobs, and there are a lot of them. So, both companies that, Wishy that presented the bid quote, the lowest bid quote that you just approved, they gave us 3 vendors to contact that they've used in the past and everything, and Trim Tech came back as the low bid at $29,050 to install all the hardware. Again, this will be paid for by the safety grant, and our safety grant was for right at $174,000, so we're within the margins of that. None of this coming out of district coffers.
They're the low bid by half.
Yes, sir. And I think a lot of times you'll see that in bids where people, a company wants the work and everything, so that's why they were.
Yeah, it says they're the only one that did the bid walk, so it makes sense.
Yeah,
They can physically
Yeah.
go on site and walk over all our buildings.
Wow.
so it's not 100 doorknobs, guys. It's in the hundreds, and they'll drill the hole, make the bid, all that good stuff, just to make sure that they're installed properly. And I believe at the intermediate school, we have 1.5-inch deck doors instead of 1.75 inch, so they'll provide the spacers to go in there as well to make them appropriately. Any other questions? With that, I'd like to make a recommendation to purchase the door hardware installation from Tremtech in the amount of $29,050.
All right, we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion? I'll motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. All in favor? None opposed.
Okay, up next, we have device purchasing. We've been working with Mr. Hand. He's here. If y'all have any questions, but these devices our teachers have laptops. We're at the point where they are at their end of life. What we would like to go to is a lease program instead of purchasing outright. We keep them for 3 years. And to be honest with you, at the end of 3 years, they're not, we don't want them anymore. And so that comes to a cost of $196,357.15 that's spread out over 3 years. A lot like a bus purchase, except at the end of a bus lease purchase, we keep the bus on these. I believe, Mr. Hand, it is, we can buy them back at fair market value, but I can assure you we're not going to want to buy them back. The device is 3 years old. We will want to purchase again and provide new devices for staff.
Is there some kind of, with a lease program, some kind of insurance, like if it malfunctions, are we covered?
No, we still get the 1 year manufacturer warranty that come with the devices themselves, but there's not an additional, it's optional, we could have took that, but the staff I have, we can make comparisons.
And we're still under, whilst things are under warranty, if we break it, we fix it.
Okay.
And of course, if it's destroyed or stolen or lost, we deal with that as well.
Okay.
After that 3 year mark, you start to see such bad degradation, working on laptops, half a day, 3 or 4 days a week.
Okay.
I would say in the last 8 months, we've had nothing but battery and power charging problems on 30, 35.
Yeah, I have one right here.
That 3 year mark ensures we don't really have to mess with that.
Okay.
The majority of this purchase is also changing the type of devices for the majority of those users. Where they're using the devices, the battery's gonna last 8 to 10 hours a day versus a 2-year-old laptop only lasts an hour and a half.
Okay.
You said 3-year lease, is that?
Yes, sir.
Is that the cost over the 3 years?
Yes, sir. The 65,000, I believe it's 65,000, like 800 a year. Yeah, it's what's that?
This guy is just under 66 after tax. What you don't see in those numbers is these top devices that we are moving to. We're also going to save approximately 20,000 in Windows licenses costs. That I can take cybersecurity software on current devices. So by moving to a different type of device, we're also going to save quite a bit.
Well, thank you for that.
All right.
Any other questions? Okay, with that, I'd like to make the recommendation to approve the lease of staff devices in the amount of $196,357.15 from DCW/DEI spread out over 3 years at $60,049.42 a year with tax added on with an additional $5,704.69 a year.
All right, we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
I'll make sure. Let Eric.
Eric's going to do it?
I'll second it.
And Mindy's going to second it. All in favor? None opposed.
That's such good math. That's a good one.
Up next, we are still working through our football field and track construction update. They're here to install, lay the track surface and everything. They did the runway on the north end on Sunday. The wind was vicious. So they stopped today. They are grinding down some of the high spots from the paving to make sure we have a consistent form and everything that will leave. They start laying tomorrow. Sound system was installed, I believe it finished up last week. It sounds really good. So we're excited about the progress and we are on schedule.
Yay.
That's great.
It's looking really good over there.
What?
It's looking really good over there.
It is. Big bleachers are in. It's going to be a good environment for not only our community, but at a Friday night football game, it's more than just the football team there. You have band, cheer, kids working cameras. I mean, it's it's a solid 300 kids involved in our Friday night events, and it's going to be a good environment for all of them. So it's a good thing.
Good.
My band kids keep wondering why they keep letting the football team on the band field.
That's true. And that's just the football end of it. We're also upgrading the track that our community uses, and countless kids use. So it is it's a track where records count.
And we're adding soccer.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Coach Schultz, we hired him, I think in the March meeting, I can't remember 100%. And we will have a recommendation for you either in the May or June board meeting for the female coach. We're excited about that. We have ordered soccer goals. We had some soccer equipment come in. We got our first soccer ball a couple of weeks ago that was paid for out of general funds and not recess activity accounts. So they're getting started up and everything, so it's exciting.
Good.
That's awesome.
Good.
Up next, we have our audit for year end. Ms. Brunel and her staff, Ms. Tucker, Ms. Rose, Ms. Ogburn. They've done an outstanding job. Everyone in our buildings have. You got to remember, our audit goes through our buildings, fixed assets, food service with Ms. Norwood, and everything. It's pretty thorough and everything. We had no findings or misstatements, which is outstanding in a budget our size. We're compliant with all standards, and our internal controls are good. I think the importance for us is to realize the transparency that provides for our community, that we are financially reasonable and responsible with our money. Our financial health of our district is good. The accountability piece that we're providing this information to you and to our stakeholders, and to make sure that, it's just like the enrollment analysis. This audit is about public trust, so that we can provide information openly about where we are, where we're going, and how much money we have, and where it's and what that money's being used for. So,
Thank you guys very much.
Yep.
Are there any questions on the audit? Ms. Brunel, do you have anything you want to add?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With that, I'd like to make the recommendation to approve the audit for year ending, I need to get this right, June 30, 2024 as presented.
All right. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion as presented.
Motion as presented by Ryan. Second? I'll second. All in favor? None opposed.
Up next, we have salary schedule, and this is a good thing. Our faculty and staff work extremely hard, and we are in a position that we are able to increase our salary schedules. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Brunel. She has worked tirelessly on this to make sure that not only that it's, first, that we can afford it, check, and to also be able to reward our faculty and staff for the outstanding job that they do. I know no one in education signs up for the volume of the amount of the paycheck, but a paycheck always helps. And to be able to say thank you with a raise, I think is very important for us to do. So,
I'm going to go over some of the summary of changes from our salary schedules. Worked really hard trying to clean them up as well as provide the raises. So for our staff licensed salary schedule, we're going to provide, or we're recommending, a 2% salary increase. For our classified salary schedule, we're recommending a $850 raise for employees working 190 days or less, and a $1,000 raise for employees, classified employees working 191 and above. We created salary schedules for our classified administrative positions. So that would be my position, our technology director, maintenance director, transportation director, and then our child nutrition director. Prior to that, we were placed on just various schedules depending on our positions. So we actually created salary schedules for those 5 positions. We changed all our athletic stipends from flat dollar amounts to indexes. So as they continue to grow as a coach, when their salary increases by their step, that index will increase as well. So that kind of gives them a bump as they continue to grow, their salary will grow with that position. We also did that with some of our non-athletic stipends, and we added a few new stipends that on the schedule that you guys had already approved prior. We just cleaned up the schedule so it was transparent that when we post them on our website, if somebody is applying for a position, they understand exactly what the pay will be before they take the position. We did not make any changes to our substitute rates. We increased those last year. And then we created an hourly salary schedule for various jobs. So we have after-school tutoring, we have different things. We have summer work where we pay kids and adults, and we didn't have anything physically on the salary schedule, so we created the salary schedule to reflect those hourly rates that we've been paying those staff members. And then one of the other changes that we did is our licensed administrative salary schedules. Our principals, assistant principals, our curriculum director, special ed director, we changed their salaries. Mr. Martin did a salary analysis based on all the districts in our co-op to try and see where we were competitively, and we're right in the middle of some of the smaller districts and then some of the larger districts, the Rogers and West Springdale that are over here. So we're in line with, I believe, Gravette.
Yes, what I did on all of them, I provided that for you with our bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and specialist degrees with our staff, is to look at kind of where we fall on compared to our neighbors. I believe there's 15 districts in there that are in Benton and Washington County. We are very competitive on our teacher pay lines with all the way up through the Solid Springs School District. You have the larger 4 districts that it's very difficult to be competitive with. On the administrator pay line, to also become competitive, again, not with the big 4, but with those who are, that are our same size up to Solid Springs. Usually with the admin salary schedules, there's a drop-off between the larger 4 and Solid Springs, and then there's a smaller drop-off between Solid Springs and us. And I understand that. You get to a scale issue and everything, and smaller districts have different reasons to work at and everything. But I feel that this salary schedule, the increases to everyone, recognizes everyone's hard work, and is fair and allows us to be as competitive in the market as we can be.
In addition, on the administrative salary schedule, we also created lanes. So before, we just had one lane, whether they had a master's, a specialist degree, or a doctorate. So we added some lanes to their salary schedule. So we have a master's lane, we have a specialist degree, and now we have a doctorate degree as well to honor as they continue to grow in their personal.
Yeah, and that's similar to what you see in our license salary schedule. You go from bachelor's to master's to specialist degree.
So one question I do have, this is exciting. Did we think about, or have we thought about, is there any way to consider, I know some of the other districts do it, but I know we've got paras, and then we have special education paras. Have we thought about tiering those as well?
So we had them tiered at one point, where we had a non-special ed para had a different salary schedule than a special ed para. But what was happening is there are times where throughout the year, we may have to move a para from a regular classroom or a regular, or like a library aide into a special ed classroom. So we were having to make changes throughout the year, which would change people's contracts. So we shifted everybody to the higher instructional aid salary schedule, which was the special ed.
Okay.
So all aides are on that column.
Okay, thank you.
We also added the personal care stipend, so if you are doing duty that involves personal care of a special needs student, or honestly any student that has that written in a formalized plan, then we pay you in 2 stipends, one in December and one in May, because you've done the work. So they're not on the front end, but they are additional stipends that they get at those 2 checkpoints, because they've done the work. They've been documented in the Medicare payment and all the things in the healthcare system and fee school. And that way we can document that personal care is happening appropriately and adequately those aides that is part of their duties are specialty trained. And so then they get that compensation. So if you have that higher ask of your job as an instructional aide that digs in a little deeper, then you definitely get
Okay.
compensated for that as well. So that's in
Thank you.
addition to.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Anything else? With that, I'd like to make the recommendation to approve the salary schedule for the 25-26 school year as presented.
Okay. We have a recommendation, do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
Motion by Mindy, do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Eric, all in favor?
On behalf of our team, faculty, and staff, they're going to say thank you.
They deserve it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, they do.
We thank them.
Got next to the personnel.
All right, it is 7:01 and we will go into executive session. Mindy, if you'll hang tight.
Going out that way or this way?
Assume we'll go back up.